true friendship. Tom and Jack were best friends. They lived in a small village near a big river. Every day they walked to school together. After school, they played in the fields and climbed trees. Tom was quiet and liked to read books. Jack was brave and loved adventures. They were different, but they always helped each other. One evening, dark clouds filled the sky. A big storm came quickly. The rain was heavy and the wind was strong. The river near their village started to rise. The water moved fast and looked dangerous. People in the village stayed inside their homes. Tom and Jack went outside to check the river. They saw trees falling into the water. Suddenly, Tom noticed a small dog stuck in the middle of the river. The dog barked and tried to climb onto a rock, but the water was too strong. "We have to help it," Tom said. Jack looked at the water. It was cold and deep. He knew it was dangerous, but he said, "I will go." Tom grabbed his arm and said, "No, it's too risky." Jack shook his head. "That dog needs us," he said. Jack found a long branch. He held it tightly and moved into the water. The current was strong, and the branch bent under his weight. He inched closer to the dog, but suddenly the branch broke. Jack fell into the water. "Jack!" Tom shouted. He ran along the riverbank, looking for his friend. Jack grabbed a floating log and swam toward the dog. With one arm he held the dog, and with the other he swam back to the edge. He was cold and tired, but he smiled when he saw Tom. "You're safe," Tom said, helping Jack out of the water. Jack held up the little dog. "And so is he," he said with a grin. They carried the dog home. That night, everyone in the village called Jack a hero, but Jack said, "I couldn't have done it without Tom." The next morning, the storm was gone and the sun was shining. The little dog wagged its tail happily as it followed Tom and Jack. "We should name him," Tom said. Jack thought for a moment and replied, "Let's call him Lucky because he survived the river." Tom laughed and agreed. The villagers gathered near the river to check for damage. Trees were broken and parts of the riverbank were gone. People thanked Jack for his bravery. Jack smiled, but he said, "I was scared too. Tom gave me the courage to help Lucky." Tom and Jack took Lucky to the village elder. The elder was an old man with a kind face. He smiled when he saw the dog. "You boys did a brave thing," he said. "But remember, true courage comes from helping others, not just being strong." The boys nodded. They felt proud but also humble. That day they cleaned the riverbank with the villagers. Tom helped carry small branches and Jack lifted the heavier ones. Lucky ran around, barking and wagging his tail. He made everyone smile. In the afternoon, Tom and Jack sat by the river with Lucky. Jack skipped stones across the water and Tom read a book aloud. Lucky rested his head on Tom's leg. "He's like part of our family now," Tom said. Jack nodded. "We'll always take care of him." Later, the boys decided to build a small house for Lucky. They gathered wood and nails from Jack's father. It was hard work, but they didn't give up. By evening, the little house was ready. Lucky barked and wagged his tail as if to say, "Thank you." That night, Tom looked at the stars and thought about their friendship. "Jack is like the stars," he said to himself. "Even in the darkest times he shines bright." He smiled, knowing that true friendship was the greatest gift of all. The next day, the boys took Lucky to the nearby meadow. The grass was tall and green, and flowers of many colours bloomed everywhere. Lucky ran around, chasing butterflies and barking happily. Tom laughed. "He's so full of energy," he said. Jack smiled and added, "He's happier now because he knows we care for him." They decided to teach Lucky some tricks. Tom held a small stick and said, "Fetch." Lucky tilted his head, looking confused. Jack showed him how to fetch by running and picking up the stick. Lucky watched and then tried it himself. He ran back with the stick in his mouth. "Good boy, Lucky!" Tom cheered. After playing, the boys sat under a big tree to rest. Jack leaned against the trunk and looked at the sky. "Do you think Lucky had a family before?" he asked. Tom shrugged. "Maybe, but now we're his family." Jack nodded. "We'll always keep him safe." Back in the village, people were still fixing their homes after the storm. Tom and Jack helped wherever they could. They carried tools, lifted wood and brought water. Lucky followed them, wagging his tail and making everyone smile. "This dog is special," one woman said. "He brings joy wherever he goes." That evening the boys gathered with the villagers around a fire. The elder told stories about bravery and friendship. He said, "Bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about doing the right thing even when you're afraid." Tom and Jack looked at each other and smiled. They understood the elder's words deeply. After the stories, the boys walked home with Lucky. The moon was bright, lighting up their path. "It feels good to help others," Tom said. Jack agreed. "And it's even better when you have someone to help you." Lucky barked softly, as if he understood. When they reached home, they checked on Lucky's little house. He curled up inside and wagged his tail before falling asleep. The boys sat outside, watching the stars. "This is a good life," Jack said. Tom nodded. "Because we have each other," he added softly. The days passed and Lucky became a part of their little family. Every morning he waited by the door, wagging his tail. Tom and Jack would take him for a walk through the village. The villagers loved seeing Lucky. Children ran up to pet him, and even the older folks smiled when he barked playfully. One afternoon, as they walked by the river, Jack noticed something in the water. "Look over there," he said, pointing. A small boat was stuck near the rocks. It seemed someone was inside, waving for help. Tom and Jack ran closer, and Lucky followed, barking loudly. A boy was trapped on the boat. The current was strong, and he couldn't row back. "Help me!" he cried. Without thinking, Jack grabbed a rope from the shore. "Hold this!" he shouted. Tom threw the rope toward the boy, but it didn't reach. "What do we do now?" Tom asked, panicked. Lucky barked and jumped into the water. "Lucky, no!" Jack yelled, but the dog swam quickly toward the boat. He grabbed the end of the rope with his mouth and paddled back to the shore. The boys quickly pulled the boat closer until the boy was safe. The boy, drenched and shivering, stepped onto the land. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling. "I thought I was going to be stuck there forever." Jack smiled and said, "You should thank Lucky. He's the real hero today." The boy's parents soon arrived, hugging him tightly and thanking Tom, Jack and Lucky over and over. "Your dog is amazing," the mother said. "He saved our son's life." Tom patted Lucky's wet fur. "He's not just a dog, he's family," he replied proudly. That evening the boys returned home with Lucky. They gave him a warm bath and a big meal. Lucky wagged his tail, looking happy and proud. "You're a hero now," Jack said, scratching behind his ears. Tom laughed. "I think he always was," he added. As the sun set, they sat outside, talking about the day. The sky turned orange and pink, and the air was cool. "Lucky showed us what bravery looks like," Jack said softly. Tom nodded, "and he taught us that anyone can be a hero, no matter how small." The next day, the story of Lucky's bravery spread throughout the village. Everyone wanted to see the dog who had saved the boy from the river. Children came to Tom and Jack's house, bringing treats and toys for Lucky. "He's famous now," Jack said, laughing as Lucky wagged his tail happily. One of the villagers, Mr. Harris, was a carpenter. He visited the boys with a special gift for Lucky. It was a wooden name tag, carefully carved with the word hero. He tied it around Lucky's collar. "Now everyone will know what a brave dog he is," Mr. Harris said. Tom and Jack decided to take Lucky to the park to celebrate. The park was full of people who clapped and cheered when they saw Lucky. Some took pictures, and others petted him gently. Lucky enjoyed the attention, but he seemed happiest when he was with Tom and Jack. As they sat on the grass, an older man approached them. "You boys must be very proud of your dog," he said. "He reminds me of a dog I had when I was young. He saved my life once too." The man told them a story about how his dog had protected him during a storm. Hearing the man's story made Jack think. "Lucky saved that boy yesterday," he said to Tom. "But he's also saved us, in a way. Before we found him, everything felt empty." Tom nodded. "Now, every day feels special. He brought us happiness when we needed it the most." As the sun began to set, the boys and Lucky walked back home. The sky was filled with golden light, and the air smelled fresh after a light rain. Lucky ran ahead, chasing butterflies and barking joyfully. "Look at him," Jack said. "He's not just a hero, he's our best friend." When they reached home, their mother was waiting for them with dinner. She smiled at Lucky and placed a bowl of his favourite food on the floor. "You've become quite the celebrity, haven't you?" she said, patting his head. Lucky barked softly, wagging his tail. That night, Tom and Jack talked about the future. "I want to do something special for Lucky," Jack said. "He deserves it." Tom smiled. "We already give him love and care. That's what matters most to him." Jack nodded, feeling grateful for their furry companion. The days passed, and Lucky continued to bring joy to Tom, Jack, and everyone in the village. He became a regular sight at the park, running with children and sitting quietly with the elderly. People would often say, "That's Lucky, the brave dog who saved a life." One morning a letter arrived at Tom and Jack's house. It was from the boys' family, the one Lucky had saved from the river. The letter was filled with words of gratitude. "Your dog is not just a hero to us," the family wrote. "He gave us back our son, and we will never forget his bravery." Along with the letter, they sent a small golden medal for Lucky. Tom placed the medal on Lucky's collar next to his wooden tag. "Now you're a real hero," he said, smiling. Jack laughed. "I think he's always been a hero. We just didn't know it yet." Lucky wagged his tail as if he understood. That weekend, the village decided to hold a special event for Lucky. They called it Heroes' Day, and everyone gathered in the town square. The mayor gave a speech praising Lucky's courage and the bond he shared with Tom and Jack. "This dog has shown us what loyalty and love mean," the mayor said. After the speech, Lucky received a big cake made just for dogs. He barked excitedly as Tom and Jack placed it in front of him. The villagers clapped and cheered as Lucky enjoyed his treat. "He deserves every bite," Jack said proudly. As the sun set on Heroes' Day, Tom, Jack and Lucky walked home together. The village looked beautiful in the golden light, and the air was filled with laughter and music. Lucky ran ahead, his tail wagging, as if he knew this day was special. When they reached home, their mother was waiting with a warm meal. She hugged Tom and Jack and looked at Lucky with a smile. "You've made us all so proud," she said. Lucky barked softly, settling down by the fire with the boys. That night, as Tom and Jack lay in bed, they talked about their dreams. "I want to help animals when I grow up," Tom said. "Like Lucky helped that boy." Jack nodded. "Me too. Lucky has taught us so much." Lucky lay at the foot of their bed, his eyes half closed but alert. He seemed to understand every word. He had found a home, a family, and a purpose. And in his heart, he knew he was loved. The stars shone brightly outside, and the house was filled with peace. Lucky's soft breathing was the only sound as the family drifted off to sleep. It was a perfect end to a perfect day.